It's 6 o'clock. I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera. It's March 15th, 2022. We're at City Hall at 511 Main Street, Bandera, Texas. All council members are present. Our city administrator is present. Our city secretary is present. Our city attorney is present, and our city attorney, Marshall Tceq, is also present. Item 2 is the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all rise. Will, would you please pray?
Most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together this evening. Thank you for this beautiful day that we've had. Lord, we'd ask that you be with everyone and their families as they're traveling, that they get where they're going safely and return again back to their homes. Lord, we'd ask for your blessings upon the Bandera City Council as they make decisions that impact us all. Lord, we'd ask for your blessings upon this great county, this great state, and most of all upon this great nation, Lord. Most of all, we'd like to thank you for your Son who died upon the cross for our many sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
What was that, Christine? Write that down.
My dog gave my homework, literally.
Yeah. All right, item 3 is visitors to be heard. No one has signed up to speak tonight. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Item A is approval of minutes from the February 1, 2022 and February 15, 2022 meetings. Item B is approval of a request by Mr. Dan Sloan with the Medina River Protection Fund to use Bandera City Park for the 21st Annual River Cleanup on May 7th, 2022. Rebecca.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second. Darcy seconds. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Council. Item 5 is presentations. Presentation of the annual, item A, presentation of the annual report and marketing plan by Main Street Shops and Lofts. We're looking for Shay, I believe, or someone. Council, as you remember, we did an amendment to our agreement to have this report done in March for the calendar year 2021. Yes, Rebecca.
May I suggest that we table this item until later?
Can we find her?
Maybe she comes.
Okay, well, I have a motion
Skip it.
to table. Tony seconds. Discussion, all in favor?
Just that we could come back to it
We'll
if she
come back
arrives.
to it, that's the
Okay.
point of tabling the
Thank you.
motion.
Yes, I know that.
Well, sometimes we misuse that action. Item B is presentation by Margot Dinky on the proposed TCEQ rule change regarding wastewater discharge into Pristine.
This meeting is being recorded.
Margot, come on up.
Okay.
Stand here. So, my name is Margot Griffin. I used to be the only practicing endocrinologist in Bandera, the city of Bandera. I retired in 2019. And I'm here today on behalf of my community in Tarpley. We call our organization Friends of Hondo Canyon. My local community has spent the last 4 years fighting 2 wastewater discharge permit applications in our county. Direct discharge of wastewater, particularly in a low-flowing or small stream, can have untoward consequences to the health of the river. Why? Well, even the most and best treated wastewater effluent cannot match the crystal clear spring water we have running in our limestone bottom creeks. That's why we can see the stones at the bottom of the creek. Our spring water contains little or no nutrients, and wastewater has nitrogen and phosphorus, typically 400-fold higher than what we find in our natural spring waters. And adding these nutrient-rich wastewaters to small streams and rivers is like adding fertilizer to the water, and it results in algal blooms, fish kills, and problems for all the people who enjoy the wildlife and the river. So I have some pictures and that I should just look at. This is the city of Blanco, a nice, clean, clear river with the limestone bottom upstream from their discharge point. And when they started to discharge in the river, this is the algal bloom they had that grew out. And on the second one, The city of Blanco had been doing a land application, it's called a 210 reuse, to put that nutrient-rich wastewater as watering for grasses. And that's a win-win because that nutrient's good for the grass. They stopped their lease of the land they were putting this wastewater on and started to discharge in 2019. And on this picture, their discharge point is right here above these two roads, and there's a dam here that right at the bridge. And what happened was, after the water was slowed from the dam and we had a drought, that's when those algal blooms started to grow down. The city of Blanco has not only stopped discharging, but they have signed our rule petition, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today. And you can see here that on the second picture, this was 6 months after they stopped discharging, the river was able to heal itself, and there was no more algal blooms there. So our community was able to stop both the discharge permits. One was on Commissioners Creek, where I live in Tarpley, and the other in the Sabinal River, just south of Vanderpool. But we've really remained on edge, wondering when and where the next wastewater discharge application will be, particularly as our county is growing and growing, and whether or not we would have the financial resources to fight it. Direct wastewater discharge is already prohibited by the Tceq in the Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone and in the Highland Lakes area, which is on the Colorado River above Austin. So why couldn't Tceq prohibit this wastewater discharge into our clear, pristine streams? So we decided to try to make some moves to get this stopped. We've been to the legislature, and now we're trying a rule change at Tceq. We first had to define what we were defending. We adopted a narrow definition on water quality analysis taken as part of the Texas Clean Rivers program. Rivers and streams in Texas are divided into units called classified segments, and each classified segment has multiple water quality monitoring sites. We took those water quality monitoring and said if more than 90% of the samples taken in a segment over the last 10 years showed undetectable phosphorus, we declared that stream or river to be a pristine stream. In Texas, there's over 1,800 classified segments, and only 22 met this criteria. That's all we have left of these pristine streams. So we've submitted a rule change, and as it turns out, the Medina River above Medina Lake, which is shown on this map, is 38 miles long from the lake up, and it is pristine. Now you all know that there's only one direct discharge permit in the county, and it's the city of Bandera. Well, it's very interesting. These red dots are the monitoring stations where they take the water quality samples. There's a monitoring station at 173 right at Bandera City Park, but the city discharges down below it. And there's only one of the 7 monitoring stations that's, it's this one right here, that would then catch or any degradation, and it's so far from the discharge point, and there's dilution from the good river stream that they have down there going into Medina Lake, that most of those samples showed undetectable phosphorus. So what I'm here today is to ask the city of Bandera to join us in signing a resolution in support of this rule change. The rule change would not change the city's current wastewater discharge permit, and any renewal permit where the same volume of discharge was requested, this rule change would not affect that. It would affect an increase in volume if the city of Bandera wanted to increase the volume of their discharge. And all that would be required is that extra volume requested would have to go to some beneficial reuse program, such as spraying it out on a golf course or a city park. Besides maintaining the beauty of the Medina River, this rule change is quite important to the city because it prevents any upstream landowner from discharging into the Medina River. And you have 30 some, 25 miles at least upstream. So if you look at that map again, there's lots of little openings for a development to say, I want to discharge in the river. And these are very difficult permits to fight. It costs money and a lot of man hours and time. So if we could get this rule change through Tceq, that's our only assurance that the Bandera River will stay pristine, and particularly for the city of Bandera. Supporting this rule does not change or stop development. It just stops developers from putting wastewater into pristine streams. And I urge you to consider joining us, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions from council? Tony?
What's the process to place the SWQM monitors?
So it's
Or do
very.
you know? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. So when the Clean Rivers program was created, what they tried to do is to monitor pollution. So if you go into bigger cities where there's multiple discharge points, there's many, many close segments. We're rural.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of discharge points, and it's usually where there's a confluence in the river or a potential discharge point.
My thought for that question is that, we always talk about it being prohibited or not allowed or people can't do, but they do it anyway. And being as rural as we are with zero oversight in our county, people can be doing this and we wouldn't even know.
Right.
And so.
But they should
And so
get a
my
permit.
thought process would be, as we do get more populated, the goal would be to monitor that more at the natural level so that we have current counts. And as we get populated, if those counts change, at what point, the more we have, the more you can single out exactly where it's happening. So.
Correct. That's why that's called Swqm database is, and it's publicly available online. But that's why this was created. You're exactly right. It would catch the pollution, and then you could identify where the polluter is because you'd have a water quality sample upstream and then downstream, and somewhere in between.
I think I understand the why, but what is the how and the process to get them placed? Like, what's the determining factor on who does it? Like, who actually places it? Who monitors? Who determines where it goes?
Okay, it's a collaborative effort between the groundwater district. They do the sampling. They send the sample into a official laboratory that Tceq then collects that data from.
Okay.
And
So it
TCEQ
starts with our
publishes it.
local groundwater district.
It does.
And landowner could probably ask for one to be placed, like if they have access to water. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I just had a conversation with our city engineer and the city administrator about this particular item. And, we're in the process of trying to relocate our wastewater treatment plant. We have requested some new numbers, a review, trying to make it a more using other uses, okay? We don't have any word back on the cost, we don't have any word back on what it's going to be, but our city engineers has suggested that because of the amount of money that's involved, and we just move forward, and, phase 1, identify some property, build the plant. Phase 2, reduce 25% of the effluent this year, reduce 50% next year, over a 5-year, 10-year period. Because there's green money out there that we can apply for once we get the plant established. So I don't know what the difference would be in what we're discharging now and what we would be discharging in the future, but there was no plan to discharge anywhere other than where we're already discharging. So it would still be in the same place. And right now it's the same amount. We're not looking at any great increase in the effluent that we're going to be having.
And there is green money out there, and there's also a group out of Wimberley, the One Water Group, that has been they've been helping the city of Blanco. The city of Blanco just has a plan sort of phasing in, as you were talking about. And I understand that is some grant money available to help.
Well, I don't wanna shoot ourselves in the foot, that, but we're already discharging, so we can discharge the same amount, just any future increase in that amount would have to be
Land.
go to the park or go to the.
Correct, yes. Because your discharge permit stays as it is.
Yeah, if we vote for this, it wouldn't be pretty if we were hypocrites. I think that's where we're going with this.
So you're worried that you would be hypocrites? Well,
You can't do this, but we're gonna
no,
do it.
right, well, and I guess I don't look at it that way. What I look at it is, some of this segment is clean.
Right.
We have the science behind it, and you wouldn't be putting anything more in there that would change that cleanliness, so I don't see it as a conflict, but I understand.
Thank you for the clarification.
Rebecca.
Margot, you did mention, and I think I might have shared that in the email, but it was the report done, the City of Blanco's final report and their phase out over time. So, so signing I guess I would just say, signing the resolution to support the effort, knowing that we have work to do to clean up our current practices, I would find to be acceptable personally.
I can also tell you that I went to the City of Blanco Council last week, and they have adopted the resolution. And, part of that, their concern also was, well, we can't just do this, we can't turn around and say, we're changing it and today is day one and it's done. But it does not affect their ability, they still have a discharge permit and they can still discharge.
Right. Thank you so much, Margot.
Thank you, Margot.
Council. Did you have anything to add?
Mayor, I have a kind of a question because, and maybe you don't know the answer. When you already submitted the request, a petition to TCEQ?
Yes, and it's going to be heard by the commissioners on March 30th.
March 30th, and then they gotta go through their process, which is probably 18 months, I would imagine.
You are right.
Okay. So we're talking about somewhere on the order of about, just for a frame of reference related to our project, 18 to 24 months probably before that rule would be effective.
Yes.
If it was adopted.
Right, no, there's a whole series that has to be
Process.
published, and then there's more public comment. But what we were trying to do with these resolutions is to show that there is municipal and community support.
Again, this resolution is in support of the petition,
Yes,
in support of the rule change.
yes.
So that's what the resolution
Exactly.
is about.
Exactly.
Yes, Tony?
I'd like to make a motion.
We aren't to there yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm way down here. My apologies. I see, we're under presentations. Sorry.
Thank you. Anything else, folks?
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, Margot. I see Shay is here. Y'all want to go back to visit the Best Western reports?
No, she has to wait today.
Here, we go back to item A, presentation.
We're here. I think Dominic is gonna go ahead and present our marketing plan. So Dominic.
Do we need to make a motion to untable or just do it?
Howdy, everyone.
Well, I can come back to it. I can come back to it.
I can give you just some of the highlights on the report. We submit both the marketing report and our annual report. So in our annual report, we kind of go over the local review.
Okay, by
the
here.
best and we should income schedule of our full-time employees that we're using. In regards to our marketing plan,
That's better.
so one of the things that you'll notice throughout the report, one of the great things our occupancy itself for the Best Western in Bandera did outperform all the competing hotels in the area, so places like Bernie and Kerrville, for example. This property here in Bandera did drive more room nights compared to competing properties. So I think that's what you said, especially when you look at burning and having, major thoroughfare like continuing through it. I think that was accessible to Bandera and in regards to kind of our 2022 marketing plan, overall we budgeted about $38K. One of the biggest things that we're looking to do is kind
Hang
of
on,
broaden.
Dominic, hang on. We're having a little bit of problem hearing you. You're kind of muffling in and out. I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi or what it is,
It's
but
his microphone, he
It-
needs to go to
He needs to
the
stay
right-hand
centered.
side of the computer.
Or we're getting echoes, and it could be because we have two
okay, give us 1
TVs.
second, Dominic.
Maybe
You wanna turn
try
the
turning
volume
one of the
up?
TVs down or off.
It's his microphone.
Volume-wise?
Every time he turns his head away from
Yeah.
his microphone, we can't
Dominic,
hear.
it's your microphone.
If
When
you
you
could just-
when you turn your head away, it fades out, and when you turn us toward, it fades in. So
Don't look to the left.
yeah, don't look to the left.
And I can't read
You gotta
his
turn
lips
down the,
right now.
somebody does.
I can try calling in. I know this has happened before.
That's better.
I think it's better now.
That's better.
So go ahead
Because
and
it was that
continue, and then
going
if I
to
need to, I'll stop
TV.
you.
Yeah, go ahead and stop me, and if I need to, I can call. So, in regards to kind of our marketing plan, what we want to do is we want to drive awareness more so of the hotel and Bandera as a community. And one of the ways that we can do that is increase our spending in terms of our social media. So for this upcoming budget, we do have plans for social media presence, and that's just to advertise the hotel in different events that would be going on. One of the big things.
Dominic, excuse me, every time you put your head down to refer to your notes, we cannot hear you. So if there's any way you can square your notes.
So what can you
Mostly in front
do?
of
You
you.
have it electronically, and you can show it on the screen, so you can look at the screen while you're, or I don't know, but
I do not have it electronically. What I'll be able to do is I can go ahead and call in.
Yeah.
all right, let's try that.
Over that one. Give me 1 second.
He just needs his microphone, if he would sit a little bit.
Or do like everybody else that's ever done a Zoom.
Or get,
To remember to stay still when I'm on Zoom.
Yeah.
you don't have to. I might pick this up from all in the room.
Yeah, I have a pretty nice one. And a giant screen.
Would y'all be able to hear better if the sound was coming from this TV and not that one?
I think either one, just one of them though.
Give me 1 more second. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, talk, go ahead, Dominic.
Mute him on the computer.
Okay, so yeah, definitely a little bit of trouble with my computer there, but is everybody able to hear me right now?
Much better.
Yes.
Okay. And so, kind of going back to what I was discussing in terms of our budget, we wanted to go ahead and kind of increase our social media presence in order to kind of increase that public awareness of the hotel and the town itself. As y'all know, throughout Bandera, throughout the year, there's always community events that are going on that's kind of a big driver for the town of Bandera, and so we wanted to make sure that we highlight those things in social media particularly, because that tends to be a good avenue to get people to know that we're here and that there are accommodations and events going on throughout the year. Some of the other things that we're looking to do in regards to our marketing is targeting specific groups that are like motorcycle groups or car enthusiasts themselves. We know that Bandera does have a large following of motorcycle enthusiasts that like to come into town throughout the year. And so, for example, we're doing a lot of direct marketing to different clubs throughout, example, Houston, in order to go ahead and drive some more of that kind of tourism into the town over the year. Other things that we plan on doing is doing a lot of sponsorships for different things like the biker rallies, the Mardi Gras, and we also have a portion of our budget that's set for promotional items in conjunction with community events. That way that we can go ahead and promote the hotel and the city as well. Overall, throughout the year, like I said, it's about $38K that's been budgeted overall. We have submitted our marketing plan, and a lot of that goes over not only the success of the hotel in terms of the occupancy compared to competing properties, but also goes over a little bit more about the particular events that go through Bandera throughout the year, and how we're going to go ahead and kind of utilize those to advertise the community, the property, throughout 2022. Is there any questions in regards to that?
None yet.
No.
How
And
about,
I believe, go ahead.
are we ready to move on to the annual report now?
So the annual report, like I stated, we did submit everything for our annual report. So we went over the local suppliers that we've used, as well as the value of the property and the number of full-time employees that we do have at the property itself.
Have you done anything to rectify any of the items that the council has pointed out to you as being out of compliance, the lighting, for instance?
So as of now, we're working with our original subcontractor to figure out lighting options. One thing we're looking at is possibly putting an aftermarket dimmer on the lights, but I have a meeting tomorrow evening. We attempted to replace the lights, and we're just trying to look at all avenues to do the most cost-effective option.
Thank you, Shay.
And then regarding the parking lot lights, we're having a local welder just kind of weld us a shield to put on the lights for the parking lot lights that aren't shielded down. And I believe that's the only outstanding item that we're working on.
Because of the, so Shay, what about the low impact development piece regarding the pervious concrete that you guys were gonna submit, do some drainage plan? There were some drainage issues still lingering that we had discussed, I think, as a part of that
Concrete.
piece. Or
So I've submitted our previous city administrator, Jay Corey, we walked with our civil engineer and Jay Corey, and we went over, and he, at the time, approved, we did a drainage channel behind the Dollar General, and I believe I emailed the letter from our civil engineer just saying that this truly is the best option. I don't believe I copied you, Rebecca, but I have emailed it.
Okay, so, and I don't wanna speak on behalf of our attorney for sure, but if one thing was gonna supplement or exchange a part of the contract, then that would really have to go before council for approval to actually amend the contract.
Yeah, and at the time, Jay Horry gave us the approval and that was not made aware. So at the time of construction, we did the drainage channel. Because pervious concrete, after a year, I think Gina and I, tried to relay this, but it gets clogged, so a year after you install it, you have the same problem.
It becomes
I remember that.
impervious, yeah. I do as well. But the contract states one thing, and
Well, it
that's-
does, but also if you, when you look at your original 380 agreement and the list of things, it's very non-specific and ambiguous, and that's the other challenge that you have with that, and that's why in amending it, we suggested that y'all come up with what are still the outstanding issues and clearly define what those would be if we need them to do anything further.
Okay, so I don't know that it's a matter of needing to do anything, Shay, but maybe the contract ought to be updated at some point.
So maybe we just have to do an amendment for the previous one.
All right,
And so when we did these other amendments, we did not do those because we were waiting on direction from the council when you get whatever this communication is that they say that they have from Jay, which you should be in the information.
Well, what I have from Jay, he gave us a verbal, and I have where I submitted him, I emailed him all of the information, and he just replied, thank you. So he never gave us the green okay, it was the verbal okay on site when we met with our civil engineers.
Shay, I believe I remember seeing your engineer's drawings of this particular section of the parking lot. Am I?
Correct, I had submitted the drawing as well as a letter, on why this was this was the best route.
Via email?
Yes.
Thank you, we'll find that.
I know I have that too, Shay, thank you.
Let's see that somewhere. Any other questions from council about the annual report? All right then.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, will we have any, further questions, or are we free to log off?
I believe we're done, Shay. I'll be looking for your request for your, property tax reimbursement and your hot tax reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Dominic.
Okay, item C, the Red Cross Proclamation 2022. Rebecca and, I don't personally support the Red Cross. I feel like that it's a gross misuse of their donations. So I'm gonna ask Rebecca to read this, please. Oh, that's right.
I will read this. This is the American Red Cross Month, March 2022 proclamation. March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank volunteers, our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they are in need. American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day during a pandemic. They volunteer their time, enhance skills, give blood, or provide financial donations to help those in need. 90% of the American Cross workforce are volunteers. The American Red Cross has been dedicated to serving people in need since our founding by Clara Barton over 140 years ago on May 21, 1881. The Hill Country chapter was first chartered in December 1917 as World War I was nearing the end in November 1918. Around the world, across the country, and here in the Hill Country, the American Red Cross responded to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, and home fires. When an injured service member ended up in a hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offered comfort. When a hospital patient needed blood, American Red Cross donors helped them. When a lifeguard jumped in to save a drowning child, or someone stepped in to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross was there. During February 2021, Texas was hit with a devastating and deadly winter blast, the Hill Country being hit the hardest. Last year we had 9 days of winter warnings. The Texas electrical grid failed in most of the state. This failure placed most homes into the cold with no power or light, heat, or water. The storm introduced a host of challenges. In addition to the widespread electrical outages, disaster responders were faced with impassable road systems, frozen water, and fuel shortages. Our responders were required to innovate. We support the life-saving warming centers set up by government agencies and communities and partners with supplies and logistical assistance such as 3,356 cots, 465 blankets, 300 comfort kits, 2,000 shelf-stable meals, 45 pallets of water, and 500 cleanup kits. We dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross's mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on the Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Pro Tem Rebecca Gibson, City of Bandera, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all citizens to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. Are you gonna?
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, next we have item D, the presentation by Marshal Dietrich of the Bandera Marshal's Office for the Racial Profiling Report for 2021. Hi, Will.
I will try to make this as expedient as possible, because I know it's going to be a long evening. Y'all should have a copy of this. As y'all see that it gets longer with more details every year, and as I was just telling our city attorney that the easier the software makes my life in doing this report, the more complicated the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement in the state of Texas makes it for me each year. I'll try to hit just the high points. If y'all have any questions, holler at me. As you can see, there's a lot of detail. There were 692 traffic stops done by the Marshal's Office this past year. 522 were done on city streets, 122 on the state highway, and one on a county road. The race of the violator was known in 28 of those stops, not known in 664 of them. The race or ethnicity is broken down. 3 of those was Alaskan or Native American Indian, 6 Pacific Islander Asian, black accounted for 11 of those stops, and white 478, Hispanic or Latino 194. Gender, female was 252 of those, male 440. The next interesting factor is the search conducted. Of those traffic stops, there was search conducted in 17 of those instances, and 14 of those searches were on white subjects, 3 Hispanic or Latino. Like I said, I'm just hitting honestly, the things that I believe that y'all are interested in, the state is interested in. If there's something that I skip over, let me know. Contraband was discovered in 9 of those 17 searches. 8 of the discoveries of contraband, it was a white individual, 1 was a Latino. The result of those stops, 33 were verbal warnings, 274 of those stops resulted in written warnings, and 382 of those stops were citations. And if you kind of track across there, it kind of follows fairly similarly with race, or
Proportionally.
as far as verbal warnings, written warnings, and citations racially. I didn't pull the calculator out and do the math, but if you just look down each row, it's fairly proportional. On page 6 was physical force resulting in bodily injury used during the stop. 0 out of 692 traffic stops was physical force used resulting in bodily injury. And for every year since I've taken over as marshal, 0 complaints of racial profiling for the whole year. The last page in here is the breakdown of, I have to use Bandera County because there's no statistical model for the makeup gender and ethnic population of our service area. You see that the male population is 49.6%, female is 50.4%, Alaskan or Native American is 1.3%, Asian or Pacific Islander is 0.6%, black is 1.1%, white is 76.7, and Hispanic or Latino is 19.8. Like I said, the length of this report just about doubles, it seems like, each year. I think Mayor Pro Tem Gibson asked me one year, well, would you like to see, how many were female? And that year, the report just wanted male, or, it just wanted racial. And the very next year, it was broken down much more exponentially. We have a very comprehensive policy. We have a complaint form specifically for racial profiling and a booklet to hand out to folks. But I'm very proud to say we just don't have a problem with it. And I hope that we don't ever. Any questions?
Thank you, Will. We'll look forward to the same report next year.
Thank y'all.
Council, respectfully, I would like to move item F up on our agenda. We have our code enforcement officer, Earl Heidelberg, here, and I'd like him available for questions, and we don't want him hanging around all night if that's okay with y'all, so can we move on to item F? Thank you. All right. Item F, discussion of possible action on an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Article 3.02, Technical and Construction Codes and Standards of the Bandera Code of Ordinances, adopting updated codes and local amendments. This is something we've been working on for a while. Have you had a chance to, Earl, have you had a chance to review what was submitted by our attorney?
Yes, I found out about it actually this morning, and yes, I did read the majority of that.
Do you find that it's comprehensive enough that it addresses our issues, any issues that you've seen so far?
Yes, I do. Yeah, we definitely need to see.
Thank you.
For sure.
Questions, council? Yes, Rebecca?
So, I'm understanding that, Dan, these suggested changes came from work you've done, or you're,
Not exactly.
not exactly?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's a great history with your attempt to update your code. Part of that history involves that.
Nothing.
No, call me smartass. But so, as you know, I mean, you could just adopt the codes. You could repeal all the codes in your local ordinance and just follow the state, because the state has adopted the international codes as well. The problem with either one of those options is that if you don't have any local amendments, then you're going to be held to the same standards in Bandera as the city of San Antonio or the city of Austin or any of the others, the larger metropolitan cities, when it comes to the inspections and what standards your builders are held to. May or may not be an issue. And most cities, though, in this time adopt local amendments. Now, in proposing local amendments, it has been a long time since they first came before the council. You are required to have a public hearing before you adopt local amendments. You did that way back when. It's been so long. If you're not comfortable adopting this tonight, I would suggest that you put these back with a public hearing to consider them again. The other thing that is not included in this is the fire code, and that's probably the most important one. And the reason why the fire code is not included in this is that at the time these were sent forward, again, you had an actual fire marshal or former fire marshal as your city administrator, and he was going to review that, what the options were, and make a suggestion on that. Now, there are local cities in the San Antonio area who've adopted local amendments to the fire code, but I don't believe those have been included yet. Those need to be included as well. As y'all know, sitting as the Board of Appeals, that's the one appeal that y'all heard from the provisions of your codes was dealing with the fire code. And that's been about 1.5 years, I think, or I don't know, counting when it was during COVID. Oh, it was before, middle, end. It was a while back. Yes, sir.
I looked through it the best I could. Is there anything in there concerning guidelines, following the state guidelines for health inspections? for
This
food
is, this
service?
has, this will have
So it
nothing to do.
won't fall under
no.
the same deal? Okay.
That's under the health and safety code. And I don't know who does your health inspections, hopefully someone.
San Antonio.
San
We fall
Antonio?
we fall
South
under
San
San Antonio.
When they're called.
Okay. Yeah, that's, and it's like anything else on inspections, how good your compliance is going to be and how well the inspections are completed. I don't know if y'all are still using Bureau Veritas. Are you, okay, yeah, Bureau Veritas, you know, it's, you know, they're good. I mean, they can do the inspections, so. Yes.
But they don't do health inspections?
No, they don't do health inspections.
Right, so they don't get involved in that
They don't
at
get
all.
involved in that.
Right.
What some cities will do, and y'all can bring out San Antonio when you need to, but a lot of cities, smaller communities that I represent will, with inspections, whether it's fire inspections, because that seems to be the one that Bureau Veritas I don't believe they do fire inspections. Do you know if they do those, David? I don't think they do. I think that was the issue with.
They have agreed to come to council and present a contract to do fire inspections.
So what some cities will do, instead of using Bureau Veritas for that, is they will contract with a county health inspector or fire inspector, fire marshal to do those inspections, or other small communities. I mean, I represent Fairless Ranch, they contract with the Bernie fire marshal or fire, you know, to do their inspections as well as the food inspections, Kendall County food inspector.
So currently, there's not any fire inspections being done?
I don't know who's doing your fire inspections. I don't think, you don't have a fire marshal.
What fire inspections?
For the fire
Well,
pit.
You mean
yeah, based on the fire
investigations?
code, huh? They used to do that
When
here.
they're building, Suzanne.
You've got like even your exit lights and stuff to make sure you have proper exit lights up. You've got fire extinguishers on hand when
Okay, well,
necessary.
that
Those
is
type of
done
things.
during the certificate of occupancy process, because you
Okay.
go through a checklist of do you have your lights and do you have your,
And
So
Jerry,
who's doing that?
there's other inspections that
Okay.
have to be done each year for certain businesses that are separate and apart from the city's permitting process. For example, the, you know, daycares and, you know, hotels have to have yearly inspections.
Okay.
Darcy?
Y'all, excuse me, I'm having a hard time seeing. I went to the eye doctor today, so I keep covering my eyes and stuff. I'd like to make a motion, if I may,
Sure.
that we table item F until such a time a fire code is also added and a public hearing can be posted again.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? David?
I want to hear from David. I just don't see why we couldn't add the appropriate fire code amendments when, as such time as they are finished. Should someone come in and get a permit, then they're going to be held to standards that are. If you look through a lot of these local amendments, some of them are amended because they conflict with law. Some of them are amended because certain materials are sufficient, and so it really could potentially impede people and create excess expense for people to not have this done. And I know it's been a long time, and we can do it, but I respect and agree that I want to get the fire code done as well, but I don't know that that this should have to wait for that to happen.
Thank you. Further comment, David?
Yeah, I'd just like to see the city pass and update current codes at the moment. Was it 2003? We're currently
We're 2003.
we're operating on for 2003 codes at the moment. Current code, very minimum, it's like 2012 is acceptable, and there 2017 or 2018 is the latest. So if we could adopt some codes that would be up to date, and then add the additional amendments, to me that would be the right thing to do, because currently a code enforcement officer, they want him to go out and enforce the code. He hasn't been empowered to go and enforce the code because we're in the 1900s on our codes. So please respectfully consider passing the baseline of the codes that can be passed, and then let's move forward with having our public hearings and local amendments and pass those and bring things up to date so our businesses will know exactly what they need to do to be in compliance and the new building codes can be enforced.
Thank you. Darcy?
I completely agree with David. However, it's been probably 8 months or so since this code stuff came up, and then we had the public hearing. I feel like it's only right to remind the public and give the public a time to be able to come and be heard. We were supposed to put a group together and talk, to local laborers that, would work with these codes. That never happened to my knowledge. So, the people that would have to deal with these codes and everything haven't been heard. So I think it's only right and prudent to post it again for a public hearing. We could do that as soon as possible. He could come back up right after that and we could pass it. Because I do agree that, it definitely needs to be done quickly. But the public should have the right to be heard on this matter. Thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah, so just for clarification, you want to table it so that we can have a public hearing and then revisit this? Because I thought your motion said table it until it includes the fire code too.
That was part of it too. I mean, if we want to do the fire code separate, because y'all think that would take too long, I'd be fine with amending my motion to exclude the fire code part.
I'd be more comfortable with that.
Will?
A couple of things. You might want to check with the city attorney, but it's the local amendments that require the public hearing, not the code itself. And as far as the getting with the contractors, our previous code enforcement officer, that was one of the things that I had instructed him to do, was to get with local contractors, and not the friendly, easy to get along with ones, the complainers, the ones that gripe the most. And you go to lunch with them and sit down and ask, hey, what do you think about? And I don't want to name names, but
We know who they are.
you can think of who I'm talking about. And he got positive feedback. They were all in support of
I remember that.
going to the 2018. The one interesting story that I heard out of all this was one of the electrical contractors who told me, because I get what the holdup is everybody's worried that it's going to be too constrictive on people. What this electrical contractor told him was that he had actually been charging people more money using a product that he believed he had to use in the city because he believed it was required in the 2003 code that he was mistaken about. He didn't have to use that product. It was expensive and cost prohibitive. He was using it anytime he did work in the city because he thought he had to because he thought it was in the 03 code. So he was relieved to find out that he didn't have to do that anymore, and he was hopeful that we would go to the 18 or better code. So there's positive outcomes that could come from this. So everybody, if nothing else, everybody would be on the same page, and they would have one set of standards for work they did out in the county or in other cities, and then a different standard that they'd have to worry about when they did work here in town.
Thank you. Darcy?
And that's great if that's the case. I'd like to hear from those people. I want a public hearing. I want to hear what the people have to say. They're the ones that elected me.
Tony?
So, I just wanna, what we have on the agenda is amending chapter 3, article 3.02. So that chapter includes the state codes as well as local amendments? Or where does the state codes fall into this? That's correct.
What that chapter does is it lists all the technical codes, and then for those for which you adopt local amendments, those would be included there as well.
Okay, so what would be the potential issue if we were to adopt the state and postpone the local?
Well, it's not really adopting, well, I think what you mean is you're going to the 2018s, which is what the state is saying. Don't do any local amendments until you have a public hearing. It wouldn't include fire code at this point, because that's not, I don't think the fire code was included in the change. It's not actually in my packet what codes were listed. So I don't know if the fire code was listed in there.
So what I'm thinking is if we did what David suggested, we go to the 2018, and we do it without fire and without local amendments, what is the time period where we're between those, when we get the fire code and the local amendments
So
done?
any
What are
permit
the
pulled-
issues with our contractors in between?
So any permits pulled during that period of time without local amendments would strictly follow and adhere to the technical code without amendments
Okay.
for
And
2018.
I-
Right now, you don't have local amendments anyway, I don't believe.
Okay.
Go.
Oh, well, that's, okay, that adds something in there too. Thank you.
Rebecca?
And, well, just a quick refresher, council repeatedly refused to adopt a more, recent code without local amendments because of the potential negative impact. So I wouldn't be a fan of adopting them without the amendments. That's been the holdup like this whole time, and getting these amendments done is what we've asked repeatedly for. And we've had so many meetings about this with public meetings, and you know,
We actually first began to address the IBC in 2016. That's when we actually began to address it. Darcy, your hand is up.
I'd like to amend my motion.
Yes, ma'am?
I'd like to amend my motion to table item F until such time we have another public hearing on the code, because I can't read it. And then go forward from there. Have it on the following agenda.
Isn't that the motion you just made a minute ago?
No, it does
She-
not include the fire
It
code.
doesn't include the fire
Without the
code, and
fire
she
code,
amended
okay.
it, and then Jerry will have to second the amendment.
Okay, Jerry, do you second? Thank you. Further discussion, council? All in favor? Darcy, Tony, Jerry, you're in favor, opposed? Christine and Rebecca are opposed, motion passes. Okay. We'll set this for public hearing ASAP. If we get it in the paper this week, we should be able to have a public hearing first week in, what is the
Thanks, Earl.
last week of May, March. Let me get it on the April 1st agenda.
Suzanne, can you go to E, please?
Ma'am?
E next, please.
We have
Okay.
staff members on the clock, so we would like to get those items up closer to the top if we could, after we realize.
Council, item E.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, discussion on regulation of short-term rentals as a land use and the implementation of residential versus commercial utility rates for short-term rentals. David?
This is a revisit from, I think 2 weeks ago. I think the number one question was how the council wanted to categorize and determine short-term rentals in the city. And then as a result, it would be either residential or commercial rates. Dan, you want to expound any more on that?
Yeah. Well, are we talking about the water part of it first, or what are you talking about the land use part?
The whole conversation.
The whole conversation.
Land use and implementation of residential versus.
So, when we last visited, we talked about the fact that, when we first had the conversation about regulation of short-term rentals as a land use, it was before your zoning code change. So after the direction from the council, went through your new zoning code, and to be honest, it doesn't honestly seem to actually regulate uses. But that's neither here nor there. It's on the books. But there's not a specific use permit or conditional use permit or any animal such as that. And as you stated at the last meeting, Tony, the only mention is of anything remotely close to a short-term rental is this bunkhouse idea that's used and allowed in one of the place types. So we're kind of limited in what you can do if you want to regulate it on the land use side without having to recraft segments of the just adopted code. And I can tell you it's a little disappointing because we did have the conversation. I met with your planner in San Marcos and we went through this, and they were talking about something called warrants, but I looked at the warrant section. It does not address would not address
what we're talking about here wouldn't be an appropriate use because it's administratively approved. So in going through the proposal that we had made before your zoning changed, let me go through here. I've got a lined up version of what you probably have in your packet, which is what you had in your packet last time. So we couldn't do, for example, we could add the definitions for what a short-term rental 1 or short-term rental 2 would be, if we wanted to break them into 2 categories. That's fine to be added into 14.5 of your new code, your new ordinance. What we couldn't do though is B through F in what you have in front of you, right? So A would be fine, that's definitions and purpose. B through F is all talking about land use and SUPs and what constitutes an appropriate use. That's not how your code reads now. I know have y'all all read everything in that zoning ordinance?
Comprehensive master plan, is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm not, because a comprehensive master plan is just a plan.
Yes, I know, but they
What
covered
matters
the-
is the
The uses, the place types,
yes, the map, the place types. So, right. So there aren't actually any uses within those.
Right.
It's, right. So it's kind of hard to have land use if it doesn't account for actual different uses within those different places.
Okay.
That's the point. So we could add parts of G in what your new code calls supplemental district regulations. So G is where it goes into the impacts. We'd have to reword it where it wouldn't include SUP considerations and things such as that. But these would be added to supplemental district regulations. And it would be talking about impacts from STRs on other surrounding properties. That's what that whole section is about. It was going to be considerations for the granting of a specific use permit. Instead, it would be geared towards what are supplemental conditions for your different place types. Yes, ma'am.
So, we had this conversation when we were working with the consultants that did this for us. And the focus was on the area's density and not use. I mean, we made a very specific, we did it very purposeful, so that we wanted people to have the freedom to, if they wanted like a small engine garage or whatever. What we didn't do is take it to the level of, like if someone wanted to create a business, which a short-term rental would fall under that because that's considered a business, even though it's a residential based, and the property would be, they would be allowed to build on that property based on the zone that they were in. So the density of buildings to property, it would be less land coverage if they would be in the area what we formerly called the residential single family, for instance. Whereas if it was in the business commercial area, the density of buildings can be tighter and you can have less land coverage, or more land coverage. So what we didn't cover is our process to have a business registered with the city, a certificate of occupancy, what it takes to do those businesses, like for instance a short-term rental, re-register it with the city so that they know that what we're paying, we're expected to pay hot tax. If we have some other business anywhere in town, how do they register with the city their business tax ID and get the approval to have the certificate of occupancy or the use of that building for that?
Well, right. So
Right.
you touched on one of the issues, right? So even if you want to say we don't have uses anymore, right? These technical codes, the International Building Code, and those things recognize that there are different uses that are proper and appropriate for residential versus commercial because the construction's different.
Right.
So we can't do away with that, right? And so you're not going to get even if the zoning
such as it is, allows whatever you want to do as long as the density is okay. Those technical codes are not going to.
Right.
The other part of that is, whether you register with the city or not, you should be collecting sales tax if you're a business, and you should be collecting hot tax if you are a lodging establishment.
Correct.
In any form or fashion. The gap that the city was experiencing was people just not doing those things, right? And I respectfully disagree with the grant person who was here last time that you can charge people and make them register as a business and this kind of sort of thing, because that's definitely a business tax that you locally cannot establish a business tax locally.
Did we determine he was a grant person?
Now, he was here on some grant stuff.
Oh, okay. I didn't know who he was.
I didn't either, but that's what he spoke on when he was actually speaking.
Oh, okay.
Then he was speaking as a short-term rental owner or something
Yeah.
from a different location. And
Gotcha.
and there are cities that do require registration. You can get around it perhaps if you don't charge a fee. But, I'm not sure how you're going to enforce that. I just...
So, so our current, what we've adopted is clearly based on density. So how do we fill that gap from density to use? So, because the usage to me is the property owner, and that changes constantly. Whereas, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
if I buy a church, an old church, and I want to live in it, I mean, then the usage would change with the property owner, right? If somebody bought a commercial building and decided they wanted to live in it, so how do we keep up with that and still have, like the overall vision of the city for the flexibility of usage for
Right.
property
And
owners?
that's
Am I saying that right?
You are, and that's a huge policy question. I mean, that's what y'all have to figure out. You don't have to regulate short-term rentals. Nothing requires you to do so.
Right.
And I'm not standing here recommending that you do or you don't. The problem posed to us was we want to be able to know how many there are and make sure they're paying their hot taxes.
And even more importantly, the residential areas, they're hugely impacted if a business goes in there. It's like they can be depending on the type of business that we allow within certain place types. If we want to link them that way.
The density of a short-term rental is not going to be any more dense than a residential.
No, I'm talking more like a
dwelling.
different kind of business. Like if they wanted to
Right.
do a small engine repair or something, that would be pretty noisy. Or if they
What
wanted,
your code, the one thing it does talk about, as far as the use, is home occupations. There's two things: manufactured homes and home occupations. Those are the only things specified in the whole thing. Those are the only things that are closest to a land use that are regulated. Now, not all home occupations are the small engine repairs. I don't even know that should be an allowed home occupation. Typically, the home occupations that are allowed in most codes are pretty passive.
I use examples very specifically. Not me buying an old church, because clearly all of our churches are being used, but there is a small engine repair being done out of their garage. It is in it does fall in the business commercial buffer, but it's still it's still existent.
The other way to approach this would be to approach it through your regular code under business regulations. You have pretty extensive requirements in there even for garage sales. You have a very lengthy and thorough ordinance regulating garage sales. And so short-term rentals, we could put requirements in there. So for example, whatever you decide on meters or how they're going to be billed, if you want to put things in there about short-term rentals with regard to parking, off-street parking, nothing says that we can't. It's regulating it as a business, if we're going to say it's a business, as opposed to a typical way you would regulate a land use, right? So you're saying for this particular type of use, but it's a business, we're going to put it under business regulations, and here's what's required of you. You have to keep your information current with the city for purposes of hot tax collection. You have to provide for
a minimum amount of off-street parking that's improved or whatever, so people aren't parking on grass. Whatever y'all come up with.
I'm just saying that why are we singling out that business from any other business?
Oh,
I mean, that's what, you know what I'm saying? It's like, to me, it just needs to be broader. It needs to
So I
be,
think for the reason I was given, right, and this goes back 2, 3, I don't know how many administrators ago, but the reason I was given was because people weren't paying their hot taxes.
Right.
And so we need to be able to track that. Now, I don't know that people are or aren't, but there wasn't an efficient way to track it. So unless you're gonna have an audit, an auditing company that quarterly audits your, people paying sales tax and hot tax and stuff like that, which you can do, and they'll check all this stuff for you, for a,
anything
fee.
for a small fee.
Yeah, for a small fee, they'll keep a percentage. Then we have to come up with some way to do that, and short-term rentals was mentioned, I think, because it's good business here. Short-term rentals in Bandera, Texas,
Well, not only that, but
USA
it's,
is booming.
not only that, but we have a lot of events and stuff, and they supplement our lack of hotels. And the people, that are coming and drinking, and, it keeps them off the roads, driving back to other towns, trying to find hotels. I mean, it definitely supplements the need.
The only concern I would still have if the decision tonight was bring back that in the business regulations, which is fine, is that you do have this one provision, this bunkhouse provision, right? So, because it's gonna treat those circumstances different than any other short-term rental. Because in that situation, the owner of the property has to live on site.
And it was geared toward the place types that are single-family residents and handles the concern of the residents that are already existing in those areas that were not wanting those types. I mean, if it's gonna be used as a single-family residence, then a short-term rental could do that if there's only one property being rented and those people are using that as if they were one family at a time, right? Over periods of time.
Yeah.
And so, whereas people were building things on their property and they were having multiple buildings on there, and therefore multiple people, multiple families were using it at the same time because there's two ways to house two families, and that was against the single family regulation, even though short-term rental is allowed. But that caused more traffic and more issues and parking and that kind of stuff. And that seemed to be a bone of contention in the residential areas where the density was lower.
And so we would have to have a cross-reference.
Right.
Even if we put it in business regulations, we'd have to cross-reference back to bunkhouses in this other part of your code when used in that fashion. But that
In
could be
certain
done.
place types.
I'm sorry?
In certain place types.
In certain place types, that's correct.
So could you just say in the business regulations, or in the business regulation code, this excludes, and then put the language from the bunkhouse type and place type 3 or whatever it is.
Yeah, we have to have some type of crossroad, but it doesn't, when it doesn't exclude it, it's so long as it's used in conformance with that section, because
Right.
if somebody starts renting out both houses, I mean, that's gonna be a violation not only of your business regulations, but of your zoning ordinance.
Exactly.
Darcy?
Do you charge extra for standing up there versus standing back there?
No, I just, I don't project well, I'm kinda quiet, and so I like to do
Well,
it.
the actual speaking time.
Actually, Darcy, I'm here so you can see me, because if I stand
I
back
still
there, you're not
can't.
gonna be able to
Don't worry.
see.
I see gray and blue, that's all I see.
So,
I had to break up the monotony, sorry.
Lots to think about.
Council? So, where do we wanna go with this? Tony?
I'd like to have a workshop on it, actually.
Workshop?
You want a motion for that?
No, ma'am.
I mean, I think it could be, a part of a regular agenda, but, I mean, we can do it in baby steps.
Rebecca?
Can I just clarify, at the workshop, is the expectation that we would be reviewing the business regulations for the business? putting all of this into that side of the ordinances, okay.
The usage,
Yeah.
the usage within the place types, yeah.
And then what about, are we still gonna talk about the utility rates tonight separately?
I think until we get this whole,
I think they're separate. Oh, I'm sorry, Suzanne, I didn't mean, my apologies, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, finish it.
I really believe they're separate issues until we establish what is and where it's gonna be and if we're even gonna allow it, period. I mean, it's just really too convoluted right now to try to address the utility rates.
Okay.
In the meantime, are they being charged commercial rates illegally, or not illegally, but without going through the proper protocols?
Keely?
I would have to look at the accounts. I don't believe that they are, but I think I would have to look at each account and see which ones. I wasn't ever involved in that. That was other utility clerks at the time, so I'd have to go back and double check.
So some might be and some aren't.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Oh, that's not good. I can't remember. Oh,
Darcy?
would Dan have to be here for the workshop?
That was my question to council. Do you want Dan present for a workshop on this particular item?
Or did
I think by
Why don't we
phone.
just
by
put it on
phone.
the agenda when he's, on the 2nd of the month when he's here?
The
He's
workshop?
bringing the business regulations to add to the ordinance.
Remember, the next one will be the second meeting in April. That's still a month out, if y'all are okay with that. Okay.
He probably charges us triple to call him on his off time.
My only concern is the part about the commercial utility rates, if they're,
know.
yeah, I mean, to me, that shouldn't have to wait till April. I mean, to me, it needs, either they all need to be the same, or they, I mean,
They all need to be the same.
they are, I
We
mean.
can have, I'm sorry. I'll have Keely to check the rates tomorrow, and I can send y'all a message whether there is difference between residential rates, commercial rates regarding those locations. And then we can go from there.
Okay,
Thank you.
so based on this specific list?
We have a list of
Okay.
addresses here on.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so we're looking at a workshop in April. He's gonna check on the utility rates tomorrow. Anything else we need to move up, Joe? Okay, then let's go back to item A. Recess? Council, you want-
Can we get Margot done?
Let's item A. Hey, let's go through item A and then we can.
She's having a blast. Let's stay till the end anyway, I'm sure.
I'm sure she's
I'm
enjoying it.
sympathetic for what she
Okay.
had to.
Item 6, discussion of possible action on the following items. Item A, approving a resolution approving the proposed TCEQ rule change regarding wastewater discharge into Pristine Creek. Tony?
I'd like to make a motion
Yes, ma'am.
to approve the resolution 2022-008, approving the proposed TCEQ rule change regarding wastewater discharge into Pristine Creeks.
Darcy?
I'd like to second.
Discussion?
I'm going to beat Rebecca. I wanted to hug that tree first. Thank you, ma'am.
No, that's on record.
Discussion? Further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed?
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you for listening.
All right.
I
Thank you for
learned,
doing the hard work.
I learned things. I love that presentation. That was good.
Gary has asked that we recess. Council, do you have any objections?
Not at all.
Okay, then I'm going to recess this meeting until 7:30. I'm reconvening our meeting of the city council. Item B, discussion of possible action on closing 11th Street between Cypress and Cedar from March 25th, 2022 at 11 a.m. to March 27th, 2022 at 6 a.m., 27th, 2022, for pedestrian and event safety with additional bike parking for the 17th Annual Thunder on 11th Street Bike Rally. Rebecca?
Make a motion to approve the street closure.
Christine?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item C, discussion and possible action on an ordinance amending the citywide comprehensive zoning map by replacing the current zoning districts with the new zoning districts in the updated Chapter 14 place type zoning ordinance. Rebecca?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Gary?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item D, discussion of possible action on approving a resolution expressing support for Bandera's sister city of Tceq, Ukraine. Darcy?
I'd like to move to approve.
Thank you. Second? Rebecca? Discussion? Rebecca?
I just wondered if we're current in our status. And I don't expect you to know the answer right now, but I just wanted to bring that up just to make sure. Because I know Eleonora used to help guide us on if there's any ways that we need to stay current with our sister city registration, just to make sure that we are on top of that.
There's a sister city resident.
Oh, there's dues in the in Sister City International.
So
Okay, I should
I'll
definitely,
check on
we'll
it.
look into that.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed.
Thank you.
We've done E, we've done F, item G. Discussion of possible action on accepting the resignation of City Administrator David Jordan. Jerry?
I would like to make a motion. I move that we accept the resignation of City Administrator David Jordan.
Do I have a second? Christine? I would like to add the word reluctantly to that, but we all understand his family position, so.
Yes.
Further discussion?
Oh, just thanks for being here, David. We'd hate to see you go.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve the city of Bandera. It's a hard decision. Excuse me, nothing personal, but it's, with the family, so, I really appreciate the opportunity for the city council and to serve the city and the city council during this time.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
You will be missed.
I would like to say that speaking with quite a few people in the city, and then also I just spent last week with county judges from all over the state, and of course our county judge here, Judge Evans. He's been impressed with David, as we're all impressed with David. So I wanted to express that sentiment, and that so that impresses me. He's very well thought of as short a period as you've been here. So that's we're very thankful and hope that you can make your way back here sometime.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item H is discussion of possible action on the process to hire a new city administrator. David, would you express to council what you did when I asked you that question?
Oh yes, I recommend you use the same process. It was very thorough, probably one of the most thorough processes I've been through. They talked to me on the phone for about an hour. And I came in and interviewed for a 3-person panel for about 45 minutes. And then they came and I had an interview before the city council. But they did their due diligence, did their homework, they referenced background checks and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a good thorough process for executive search.
If council wants to go that way, I can reach out to Max Westbrook and Bruce Mills and ask for them to send me a proposal again as they did before. Now, of course, that's up to you, council, how you want to go by it. Rebecca had her hand up first, Tony.
Yeah, I was just gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the request for a proposal.
Tony,
A second.
thank you. Discussion, council, Jerry?
Does anybody remember what the cost was on that?
It was about $5,000.
That's what I remember.
Tony?
I believe that since, and it's been mentioned also that since his employment wasn't a year, that there might be some sort of, like that
Rebate.
they have in our contract that they help us find another one, either maybe, I don't know what the.
I don't remember, but I'll certainly look at the contract.
I mean, I'm sure they'll know, but I know that most recruiting firms have that in their sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's a year, but there is a cutoff that if it doesn't work out, that they assist. Sometimes it's a discount rate, sometimes it's at no charge. But
Especially since he was terrible and didn't work out.
terrible.
terrible.
We all hate him.
Nobody likes him. All right, further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, executive session. The City of Bandera will meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551072. Deliberations about real property, to wit, an update from Texas Land and Right of Way on land acquisition for the wastewater treatment plant relocation. Is Scotty on the line?
He was on there this whole time and he's gone now.
We just like y'all having to get up and out.
Yeah.
And
Make sure y'all have your exercise.
So 7:36, I'm recessing the regular meeting. Any final action necessary for items discussed in closed session? Council came out of that meeting with direction to the city administrator to contact the land acquisition company and see if we can speed them along. Okay, item 9, requests and announcements. Item A, request for council to place items on an agenda. Jerry.
I'd like to request an update on the repairs to Heritage Park.
I got something on that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so do I, just today,
Yeah. Okay. Council, we're going to be addressing the personnel issues that David's been working on at council's request since he first came to work. We're going to see the salary survey. We're going to see the employee model. We're going to address
organizational chart, salary survey,
longevity pay.
longevity pay, and COLA.
COLA, thank you. Those are 4 items going to be on our March 23rd agenda. I want to wrap up as much of this business as we can before David leaves us.
Are we considering having weekly meetings until he?
Whatever we did this week and next week.
Yeah, have another one now. I mean, because I don't want everything to fall on the 23rd and then he'd be gone 2 days later. It's like, I mean, if we could have another one, if we could have a meeting next Tuesday, I'd be all for it.
Well, we're having one next Wednesday.
Oh, that's right.
Next Wednesday.
That's okay.
We're down to it.
Oh, that is it?
Yes, this week
Yeah.
and next week.
There you
These
go.
next Friday.
Sorry.
Jerry?
Discussion, possible action to acquire different land and right-of-way consulting firm. Acquisition. If that proper wording for it.
Or perhaps even,
How about just
real
review the
estate agent?
agreement?
Well, we can do that as discussion or whatever. Don't have to take action.
anything else y'all want to address right away? Yes, Tony?
I was moving on to announcements.
Oh, you're down to announcements? Anything else? All right, let's go to item B, announcements by council. Tony?
Okay, as y'all know, this week is spring break and both museums are doing daily events for kids and they have museum bucks where you can get discount. If you go to book, you can get museum bucks from the one you go to so you can use it at the other one, so they're partnering.
That's cool.
And then the other thing is don't forget the ham rodeo this Saturday. It opens at 9, the actual events start at 11. It's pretty important that if we as a community want this event to continue, it's really important to support the Bandera Wranglers and their efforts to keep this going because they won the lawsuit against PETA. If Bandera Wranglers goes away, then whoever takes it over next time will go through the same thing with PETA. As long as the Bandera Wranglers have it or are able to maintain their organization, then PETA cannot sue them again for the same things and we can continue and maintain. So it's extremely important that the community support the event.
Christine?
On that note, they're also still looking for volunteers to help doing whatever. I think I'm doing ticket booth on Saturday, but they're still looking for volunteers if you know anybody that wants to go.
All hands on deck would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the following weekend is the bike rally, and Bill Tabor has once again invited all of council to come out for his opening ceremony, which Suzanne will be
Need the
there.
right time this time?
Yes.
Is that on Thursday or Friday?
No, it's actually Friday night.
It's Friday night.
It's Friday night.
And I
Yeah.
believe it's at 6 p.m. because they told me 7 p.m. last year and I was late.
Well, yeah, that's
we
what we
were
were
too.
all messed. Yeah, I remember I was running.
We'll find out for sure this year.
Yes, we'll get it nailed. Yeah, because I was told the wrong time too. So yeah, but he's invited us all out there again. So we just need to by Wednesday let Suzanne or I know so we can let Bill know so they can they'll have a packet up front with passes for however many people and their names. So we just need to kind of let them know ahead
What
of time.
time is that again? For that part of it?
I believe it's going to be 6 o'clock Friday night.
If that changes, I'll be sure. and
Not
let
this
everybody
Friday,
know.
a week.
No,
a
the
week.
25th.
On the 25th.
On David's last day, on the 25th.
Oh, that'll be a great farewell party.
Gone with a bang, right?
He'll already be in San Antonio probably.
Cheers.
He'll be running.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Just get a second. Nobody want to second it?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sorry.
Christine?
It's
I
only
thought
'cause
somebody,
I-
I thought she said second, so.
All in favor?
Okay.
All in favor, none opposed?
All of- yeah, favor.
8:04.